Thank you as well to the presidency, the Chinese presidency, for the support in preparing for this meeting, and to partners that have supported Romania's request. The seriousness of this current moment cannot be overstated. It is for the first time in the 70 years history of our UN membership that Romania requests an urgent meeting of the Security Council on a matter that involves us directly. Now, our history was not without challenges, especially as I have heard here in the room mentions of who understands the Russian Federation. I would say that the eastern part of Europe, we do have our share of understanding it. And although our history has not been without challenges, we have not called on the UN Security Council until today. But we do so today because what we have achieved in the many years that have passed is to build a safe country, to build a growing economy. We have increased in the 3 decades that have passed 10 times our economy. We have managed to also be a security partner for the region. And we want to see this into the future. But we do understand now more than we have done before that in order for this to happen, in order for this to be without risk, we do need to do everything that is within our responsibility, individually and collectively, to help stop the war at our border and to find a diplomatic pathway in that direction. We have a joint responsibility not just to draw a line, but to make sure we do not move that line, as people would want sometime. It is imperative for the Council to address such unnecessary escalation by the Russian Federation in its war of aggression against Ukraine. The Security Council is the most powerful tool of the international community, a common tool that we have to prevent the perception of a normalization of the abuse. We can and should not move the line we have drawn. We should not consider these current escalations as the new normal. On the night of 28 to 29th of May, a Russian drone carrying explosives violated the Romanian airspace at 2 a.m. Our military analysis shows that this drone was initially part of a swarm of drones used in an overnight attack against Ukrainian civilian infrastructure on the Danube, and traveled for 4 minutes within our territory and eventually crashed on the 10th floor of a residential apartment building in the city of Galati, Romania. The area where it crashed is close to the border area between Romania, Republic of Moldova, and Ukraine. Since the beginning of the war of aggression against Ukraine, Russian drones entered numerous times the Romanian airspace, as well as the airspace of other partners in Central and Eastern Europe, in breach of international law and the UN Charter. And at this Council, those examples have been addressed from Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. Since the start of the invasion, they were brought to the attention of this Council, and we have talked at length about them and expressed our solidarity to each other. In Romania's case, just this year, we have seen more than 30 such incursions, and we have seen a growing frequency. What makes it different this time, though, is that it is the first time since the start of the war of aggression against Ukraine that Romanian citizens also require medical care and that Romanian property has been significantly damaged. A mother and child were injured and required medical care, but now are out of risk. The impact caused the fire and extensive damages to the building. The building itself was temporarily evacuated. I want to provide context. The drone crashed in a highly densely populated residential area, where children, women, and men live safely with their families. The effects could have been more astounding. Romania firmly condemns this reckless behavior and repeated illegal intrusion by Russian vehicles into our sovereign territory. Irrespective of what was their initial destination, the gravity of the action and the responsibility of the perpetrator are clear. The risk further undermines peace and security in Europe and, through its wider implications, represents a concern for the entire UN membership. Madam President, our military analysis shows without a doubt that the drone that crashed on Thursday night in Galati is a Gerand 2 of Russian origin. This undeniable conclusion is backed by clear findings of a technical report issued by our special investigators and presented to the public by our President, on the basis of a consistent set of technical evidence. Apart from an inscription in Cyrillic characters of the name Gerand 2, from the recovered fragments, the report conclusively established that the electronic components, navigation systems, control modules, engine, construction elements show similarities to those of other Geran 2 drones previously recovered in Romania and identified as being manufactured in the Russian Federation. The report also shows manufacturing markings, technical inscriptions, construction features and materials used follow the same technological process. The chemical analysis points to the same origin. Madam President, reckless violation by Russian drones of the airspace of Romania and of other Central and European partners have occurred repeatedly since the outbreak of the war against Ukraine. This Council also met after such incidents. This most recent incident is an extremely unsettling reality, as it shows an increasing pattern of indiscriminate drone strikes injuring civilians across the border, and such behavior is unacceptable under the UN Charter and international law. This modern warfare with autonomous vehicles does not create a distance from responsibility. We recall the Secretary General's recent warnings in this Council a day before the incident, that the rate of escalation we are witnessing in attacks against Ukraine generates serious and wide-ranging consequences. These need to be addressed and contained, not only because of their extremely serious impact on the ground and in and of themselves a great cause for concern and condemnation, but also because they erode the basic premises for diplomacy, peace and security. Anytime, anywhere, in any situation, attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure call for condemnation in the strongest terms. Romania reiterates our solidarity with our neighbor Ukraine and its people in their legitimate self-defense against the aggressor and in the exercise of their sovereign right to freely choose their future. Since the start of the aggression, we have been witnessing harrowing accounts of the immense toll of the war on civilians in Ukraine. The courage of Ukrainians, their sacrifice, their power of innovation and resilience should be respected and supported. But because they do have an increased power to defend themselves, we should not consider this the new normal. We should continue to increase diplomatic pressure on the aggressor to stop. For a long time, Romania is a reliable country and a security provider in its region and beyond. Our efforts benefited our partners around the world, be it the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which facilitated access of Ukrainian grains to consumers around the world, the EU Solidarity Lanes, our contribution to demining in the Black Sea alongside our partners, are just a few areas where we do hope we have contributed significantly and will continue to do so. We have the longest border with the war, and we do have the responsibility to protect it, of course, for our citizens, but also because it is the border of the European Union to the war, it is the border of the Allied and NATO members, and as well, it is not just a shared responsibility, but of course, something that exposes Romania to the consequences of the war, and that makes us even more resilient in continuing the effort towards the path for peace. Since the outbreak of the war in 2022, these consequences have been felt in the broader region of the Black Sea, including the neighbor Republic of Moldova. Of course, we are not parties of the war, and we have been clear about this since day one. But we want to be part of the effort to stop the war and have a settled peace. We do need to search for that path together. We reiterate our support for a full, immediate and unconditional ceasefire and the pursuit of a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine, in line with the UN Charter and international law, and in full observance of the principles of sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity within internationally recognized borders. We have said it before in this Council, and we will repeat it once again today. Robust and workable security guarantees for Ukraine are essential for a credible peace in face of an aggressor with a historical record of relapsing into breaches of international law. This reckless behavior and blatant disregard of human suffering not only goes against the UN Charter and international law, including international humanitarian law, but it also intentionally disregards the diplomatic effort led by those that wanted to bring us closer to peace. We are time and again confronted with a staggering paradox. We seek accountability in this Council, where the Russian Federation, a permanent member who should ensure the full respect of the UN Charter and international law, is also the aggressor. Such impunity in a blatant deviation of the fundamental principles and purposes of the UN Charter goes against the core mission of this organization, maintaining international peace and security through good faith cooperation among member states. As several members in this Council have emphasized before us, this type of escalatory behavior represents a concrete challenge to international peace and security and should be condemned as such. Romania's request for this meeting and my presence here in this chamber is an act of responsibility on our behalf and a genuine commitment to the principles that underpin multilateralism and the authority of the Council. Allow me to appreciate the expression of support and solidarity conveyed by the international community in the aftermath of the incident in Galati, including around this table, and during the media stakeout prior to this, where we've delivered a statement on behalf of 56 countries, and we're grateful for that. This reconfirms the crucial role of the Security Council and the United Nations as a whole in ensuring that breaches of the UN Charter and international law do not remain unaddressed and unaccounted for. My citizens back home are asking if words are enough for the situation we're in. But we are committed to the diplomatic pathway ahead, and especially in this room, especially in the Security Council, words hold a strong power. It is the widest legitimacy of an institution to host such needed dialogues, as uncomfortable as they might be, the needed dialogues to support peace. And for that, we do need the common response, as we have seen throughout these days, to these blatant violations of international law. And we do need to collectively support the path toward peace at our border. It is also another reason why we speak here today, and we are grateful for your interventions as well. Truth is not always self-evident. Truth itself also needs to be protected as we protect our land, our waters, our air. We do need to protect facts because they are misinterpreted, and sometimes for those that have no arguments to be able to explain their behavior, they try to run away from responsibility by trying to change the truth with their narratives. So our presence here today, our intervention here today, is also in protection of the truth and in making sure that those that are victims of the aggression are not painted as the aggressors. Romania will continue to be a reliable partner, and we're grateful for the international support we see in this community. Thank you.